Whoever you are, wherever you herald from, congratulations on finding your way here. This is an unusual channel. Rasa Leela Healing is first and foremost humanitarian. We also discuss astrology. I have been putting these videos out for nearly a dozen years. Some of you folks have watched me grow through nearly half of my life, so there's a good chance many of you deep into the astrology understand there is something very mystical, almost supernatural, specifically about with astrology. It's not approachable to most people, whether it be too real, whether it be too true. That's the astrology I deliver. This is not mere entertainment. This is to be of service and of use to you. Over the last weekend, we had our prior Q&A, which is always one of my favorite days of the month because we get a whole group of people together. I offer mini chart readings to everyone. We take turns. People share what they're going through, and as they're sharing what they go through, I circle parts of the chart. One of the best educational opportunities that proves how real astrology is, each and every Q&A. It is also a support group where we really see, wow, despite going through totally unique experiences, we are all together in this one, in some way or another. So again, congratulations on making it here, because you have made it 8 months nearly through the year of 2025. And us astrologers knew this was going to be a very fast-paced, very unpredictable, shocking year. And so, of course, it is nothing as I have anticipated. I've been in a state of hypervigilance essentially since December. This is where I invite you to Rasa Leela Community. This webpage is paid for and hosted by me. This is sovereign, closed circuit community of like minds. Okay, that's what I'm inviting you to. That's a very special thing and an increasingly rare thing in our world. I will also invite you to our next Q&A, which will take place on September 13th. So if you join the Q&A circle for just $36 a month, you can get a reading from me every month. And there's a core group, and there's people that stay 4 or 5 hours, and we never want to hang up. We want to hang out all the time. And that's why we've created the community web page. This is all, again, humanitarianism. What that means is we want to educate ourselves on human needs and what's missing so we can help drag one another out of the gutter, essentially. And what the community is particularly putting a call out for are for the supporters, the space holders, the caretakers. I'm not really inviting a whole bunch of leeches to come and take for free as much as sensitive, in tune people to come together and have each other's backs. And because I own and run it all, I'm going to make sure that that ends up being the case. It hasn't always been fun and games for the community in this regard. That is because the astrology which I teach and preach is not the same as the New Age movement or the deceptive false light that could very well mislead you away from your soul. Whereas knowing your birth chart is the best means of knowing yourself. It is the best means of doing shadow work to such a specific and articulate degree. If you have any slight interest in any of the above, you gotta check out my astrology school at RasaLeelaCommunity.com. That comes from my teacher, Jeffrey Wolf Green. His teacher was the great Dane Ruggiero of humanitarian astrology. Okay, so 2025. I'm going to begin some of this outside to talk about the broad brushstrokes before I move inside to my computer so I can break it down a little bit more day by day, week by week, because it's too much. And I am going to start melting, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on anyone. So it's for the best for us all. I also can't think straight when my brain is on fire. So something I want to mention even before I begin to open my mouth about the forthcoming new moon that's going to be coming up August 23rd, I want to point out the fact that almost all of the new moons in 2025 just so happen to line up in a planetary aspect with Pluto. Now, if you've tuned into my videos over the years, you know the new moon is one of the most important moments of any month. And you can actually look at the full birth chart, you could say, the full chart of the moon. You can look at the new moon and all of the planetary aspects formed to that new moon as like a snapshot in time that's going to hold a particular energy, direction, intention, theme, feel, season for a whole forthcoming month. So the new moon is one of the most important things to pay attention to. And I recommend, if we can, the couple days before a new moon is one of the best times every month to reflect, tune in, know what we've been forced to learn in the last month, what we got right, loose ends, what we're taking with us, and what we want to move now into the next cycle. Okay, so we're in month 8 of 12. 6 out of 8 of these new moons have had a planetary aspect to Pluto. That leaves 4 more months, 3 of which will have a planetary aspect to Pluto. Okay, so Pluto is the most intense planet. Okay. Evolutionary astrology is really putting Pluto, people always laugh because it's like, we don't consider Pluto a planet anymore. Ha. It's like, okay, study it in astrology and just see what effect this planet has. Say, if Pluto transits over where the moon was at the time of someone's birth, just see if that Pluto transit is felt or known or experienced at all, because we know this is the most intense, we could say nearly furnace of transformation and transmutation. It is the evolutionary force and fulcrum point itself. It's what's driving everything forward. And there's 2 types of evolution generated by Pluto. There's the slow, barely perceivable type, which is essentially going on all the time in the background. We barely know it. And then there is what is called cataclysmic evolution. Cataclysmic evolution is usually particularly when everything changes and we take a step into the future, not necessarily easy, not necessarily by having the new foundation served to us on a silver platter, when it may be more of a wrecking ball knocking the old one down. The fact that you are here listening to me, ladies and gentlemen, you're on the construction crew. It's a very particular type of person who's called to these videos, even in the astrological community, because I'm going to continue to encourage everyone, discern. If you're into spirituality at all, it's all about discernment. It's not just about trust and faith and love and surrender. It's about discernment, because people don't know their shadows. People don't know their ulterior motivations. And some of the fluffiest shadows by some of the so-called nicest people that I've ever met don't even realize how much they may be possessed, full of their own racism or misogyny or superiority complex. It is more common than not, which is, again, underline, highlights evolutionary astrology as taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, which you can get everything you could learn at a go at your own pace, over 50 hours of video material on my webpage, Rasa Leela Community. So my goal here is to make other evolutionary astrologers, so you do not have to simply take my word for it. You too can get to the same depth of information and understand any moment in time, any relationship, anything you're going through, down to the hair sliver. We understand not only what we're going through, but why. So 0 degrees is where the next new moon takes place, right on the cusp in between Leo and Virgo. And the reason I'm laughing is I did a whole workshop exactly on this cusp, from Leo to Virgo. And I was just on my computer looking for it, and it's like, where'd it go? Do I have a recording of it somewhere? So either in the video description below, you will find a link to a workshop which I will put on 50% off, or I will be putting a link for an event that you can sign up, which will be me redoing from Leo to Virgo. It's a very, very important cusp. It's a very important transformation point. And this particular new moon could not be more highlighted, again, in its planetary aspect to Pluto in a quincunx. Now, this last Saturday's Q&A, a really great question was brought up, and it was around Virgo and Scorpio, and are they not the most transformative signs, and why? You know, there is a relationship as to why. It's the quincunx aspect, the 150-degree aspect. If you start from one end of the cycle, or if you go to start from the other end, counterclockwise or clockwise, you can go 150 degrees, you get a quincunx. When you have two quincunx going in those two opposite directions, you have one in a more Virgonian and one in a more Scorpion nature. Again, all this is in my astrology school. These are the two most challenging signs for many reasons. Scorpio, as we know, it's where we meet the greatest extremes of life. Good meets evil. We get pushed beyond the edge of our material body. We get pushed beyond. We get pushed beyond our comfort zone. We get pushed beyond what we would choose or what we want when it comes to Scorpio, which can oftentimes deal with what is thrust upon us, and then we have to learn to re-empower ourselves by discarding what's been projected on us that's not ours to carry. Virgo, similarly, has to learn to be easier on themselves, but in a completely different way. You see, OCD is Virgo. Obsession is Scorpio. Someone's obsessed with another person, that's a Scorpio type of soul-to-soul magnetism, when everything has to be in a particular type of way in order to function to the best of its ability, that's Virgo. So what Virgo does as a function, which is what every zodiac sign is, they serve a fundamental biological spiritual function, and all 12 zodiac signs covers all life experience on Earth. Virgo is the sixth sign. It's the last sign of the first hemi-cycle. Comes right after Leo and right before Libra. And again, this is where the 150-degree quincunx aspect takes place, renowned as one of the hardest. It's like mixing oil and water. It's like it doesn't work at all. It doesn't seem right. It feels like there's something very much off here. Now, guess what? 2 lunations ago, we had the Cancer New Moon at the end of June that was quincunx to Pluto. Okay, so we're literally getting to experience both ends. But what I said at the end of June about that Cancer New Moon is it could very well bring in this vibe or feel that something's not quite right. And I will tell you that feeling of uneasiness never left my stomach or emotional being at any point that month, but it was a new moon in Cancer. And I'm a particularly sensitive man. Virgo is a very unique sign in and of itself because it is an earth element sign ruled by Mercury, which, as we know, is a very analytical planet. Mercury's function is to break apart the environment into chunks of information so we can understand what we're working with. So what Virgo does is chunks everything down to hyper focus on every little particular point to see what is not working and fix it. Virgo's orientation is to draw awareness to what is not working. Bear that in mind when we're dealing with the highly Virgonian souls. Almost always our nurses, they've got Virgo, Virgo, Virgo. Our body workers, Virgo, Virgo, Virgo. But also deeply Virgo souls, whether it be your South Node in Virgo, where the collective South Node is now, whether it be, I'm laughing because there's actually going to be another new moon in Virgo. This is our blue moon phenomenon. A month from now, we're going to have another new moon in Virgo, 29 degrees. So we're going to get plenty experience of this Virgonian function, which is to refine and to improve, like a potter at the wheel, just shaping what is off. And there is going to be something off. We're going to have that same exact experience of something's not quite right with that quincunx to Pluto, which at 0 degrees Virgo, I hope that I can get the recording online. Otherwise, again, we'll do it in person. Maybe I'll do it live, make it fun. Again, we got 2 Virgo new moons, plenty of time to teach this material to you all. Leo is the final sign of the first hemicycle that deals with individuality. So Leo is when the individual discovers their own creative purpose and becomes quite confident in that, right? That's why we think of Leo as the trumpet player, letting loose on their trumpet, and sometimes it's like, all right, that one trumpet player is playing a little too loud. Now that feedback from the audience, shh, you're playing too loud, we can't fucking hear the rest of the instruments, is Virgo. It's the societal feedback or the criticism from others we begin to receive before we enter the second hemicycle, which is all about social interaction, contribution back to the world, and the collective. All right, so Virgo is what refines all of this. This is why I'm saying, my dear South Node Virgo souls, or Pluto in the 6th house souls, or the ruler, planetary ruler of the South Node in the 6th house, or you've got a billion planets, which of course we know there's billions of planets around the sun. In Virgo, be very, very easy on yourself. You have already spent lifetimes eliminating egoic distraction, and highly Virgonian souls will actually be afraid of being narcissistic. So I actually, in a tongue-in-cheek type of way, say, try to be more damn narcissistic. Just try. Try, because all you'll end up doing is asserting more of your own needs, and you'll end up helping out more people without even trying to. Those are our highly Virgonian souls. And the transiting moon's nodes are in Virgo-Pisces polarity. So this is a lot of what we're working with. Virgo's the perfectionist in our life. We should have had all this together and perfect by now. And you can basically track whatever house that South Node is in is where you're likely having that experience right now. Whereas the transiting North Node in Pisces is what we don't have control over. Like the world and the economy and how Uranus is about to go back in and how there's all of these future unexpected twists and turns. We can know that we're not even halfway through this absolute global overhaul. And that's why I'm going to take it inside and break it more day by day, week by week here in a second to get an understanding more of the specifics. Because it's big stuff going on this year. And the big stuff concluding August has largely been reflected in the fact that Mercury stationed opposite to Pluto immediately after the prior new moon in Leo, also opposite to Pluto. Now the opposition aspect, if you could piece this together, again, we're talking about hemicycles. Libra is the first social sign, has everything to do with balance. So when we deal with the opposition aspect, we deal with the self-other dynamic, which is why this Mercury stationing opposite to Pluto and this whole new moon, this whole last lunation, had the theme of unmasking. Who people pretend to be or how they act to be versus who they really are. The roles that we assume, the roles that we believe we should assume. We should have been first chair, according to what my mom said. She's not going to love me if I'm not first chair, which is what we're used to because most of us grew up in abusive households and probably therefore don't even know healthy relationship to a 100% degree. I mean, let's be real here. And if there were ever a time to be real here and not simply be dreamy eyed and not simply, all talk and no walk, this is a new moon that's going to beat the living shit out of us if we try to go about it this time that way. Virgo is about producing results that are measurable, that are helpful, that improve others' lives. The way Rasa Lila Healing is intended to not merely share astrology as entertainment, but to hone it and use it as one of the most powerful healing tools to heal the soul, because we can see all of your childhood trauma in your birth chart. You think that may be useful in the hands of a therapist? That's why I'm working with therapists now. And the good stuff is yet to come. But this is why I'm letting you know, no, this is not New Age. I'm the guy who's changing it. And I'm the guy who's going to make sure that there is at least a facet of astrology that is not being lost. Now, it would just be a crime to Virgo to leave out the fine details. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity to take a look and get a better understanding of the last couple weeks of August. So here we'll go into greater detail, not only with planetary aspects. I'm going to talk about a few asteroids, what they're doing before we wrap up August. But first, I want to talk about the new moon itself, because I mentioned this quincunx aspect to Pluto. And again, the sense that something is not right, 150 degrees. Well, there's not just one quincunx, there is another quincunx. And when we have both quincunx, 150 degrees either way from the new moon or the beginning of a cycle, this is called a yod. So new moon in Virgo forms a yod between Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. Holy shit. Holy shit, says the astrologer in and of itself. And then we got this near exact square to Uranus. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? What's going to go on from the end of August through the end of September? Because we're talking about such significant adjustments. It's like we missed an entire member of our family, like Home Alone. Where's, I forget his name. We left the kid at home. It's like, oh, this is a fundamental changing of directions. I would consider this square to Uranus, it being Uranus and what it represents, a crisis of consciousness in and of itself. Now, if any two, well, it's one planet that rules the nervous system, any two signs, Gemini and Virgo. It's ruled by Mercury. We see that Virgo New Moon squaring Uranus in Gemini. Let's bring up a lot of tension. This can especially put tension on the nervous system. As I mentioned, Virgo is unique, being an earth sign ruled by such an analytical planet. So let me pull up my ability to move through time so we can look at these next couple of weeks. This, my folks, is what I normally sound like. This, folks, is my voice as it sounds in my astrology readings. I've heard over the decade I've done this work, man, you yell a lot. I've also been in freezing cold. Sometimes I used to hike up mountains. It was all about connection to nature to be able to access flow, that I would go outside, but it was quite demanding in many respects, many times. Okay, so what we see here, sun currently 26, 27, and we have our new moon the day after sun squares Uranus. Okay, so this is going to set the tone for the whole lunation. This again is why I really hope, if anything, we start to pay attention to the moon. This is definitely going to be a workshop coming up here soon, but here is my chart as an example. We see where the moon is now, 2 degrees Cancer. We can literally track the moon through the chart. See, I'm just taking her day by day, 360 around the chart every month. So find a program that allows you to make bi-wheels, make the inner ring your chart, the outer ring, the transits, and just start to observe. This next month, we get a little taste of what it may be like to be the highly Virgonian soul. Again, Pluto in the sixth, South Node in the sixth, planetary ruler of the South Node. So if your South Node's in Leo and your Sun is in the sixth house, still very, very Virgo. We're all going to get a taste of what Virgo is like this next month. There is a desire to get things working better. Again, there's a sense that something's missing. We want to break apart the engine and put it back together, particularly with the square that forms to Uranus just a few days after the new moon. All right. Now, what I also wanted to pay attention to is some interesting asteroid aspects. So as the moon continues through Virgo and now into Scorpio, she will join the asteroids Vesta and Juno, where Mercury is going to square these two planets the 28th through the 30th. So let's not even get too specific. 28th through the 30th, Moon's joining Juno Vesta, Mercury squaring Juno Vesta. This is an interesting dichotomy in itself because Mercury in Leo is ready to go. I've got something to share. I've got something to teach. I've waited so long for it. And then this Vesta, Juno, it's quite deep. This can be relationship stuff. And we're talking about stuff that may have been swept under for a long time. Now we're having to have difficult conversations. We must have those difficult conversations. Jupiter in Cancer all of this year, where Venus was these last few days. This is a huge opportunity for us to start to sow the seed for soul family. Most of us aren't born into nuclear families that we feel totally seen, supported, and emotionally safe with. So this Jupiter in transit for the entire next year till summer of 2026 can really be a blessing in many respects. Now, as we continue through the month, again, we notice Moon joins that Juno Vesta while squaring Mercury, 28th, 29th, 30th. Those are going to be some interesting dates. Meanwhile, Mercury has been stationed to Pallas Athena here, asteroid Pallas Athena, and that doesn't always make it easy to communicate or know. We're really needing to find a balance and integrate both hemispheres of the brain, the rational and the logical part of ourself, which is also highlighted in the themes of the moon's nodes, where we see Virgo is the very logical, rational sign, and Pisces says, well, time to take a leap of faith. We're the fool and we got to step off the cliff because sometimes life asks us to, and sometimes there are things outside of our control. So we really are learning how to take that trust fall back. And where are our guides? Where are our higher ups? What greater purpose did we forget and are being reminded of? So to return to that core source of inspiration. So a lot of folks have struggled with exactly that all of this year, and that was largely reflected in this Saturn Neptune that we can now see will be going back into Pisces October to November. So fall time is going to be when this whole existential spiritual funk stuff, there's some loose ends here. And I don't know about you, but it's gotten pretty personal between me and God. I'm like, really? We have to live. You make empaths and sociopaths. What is this whole good and evil thing? Like, I know we're supposed to learn things, but does it have to be so sharp? And it's free will, it's humans, but we have to also learn how to forgive. God is a north node. Pisces thing. I know this is like outside of some people's spiritual, what? We never criticize God. But God gave us the free will that made us able to create all of this. So the forgiveness of nature, of what is, of our life, to accept it all, good, bad, and ugly. It's not the easiest task in the world, but it's very much reflected in the transiting moon's nodes this entire year of 2025. They will shift mid-year 2026. All right. Now it's going to be Venus next that comes up and opposes the asteroid Pallas Athena. This isn't going to be later until October. And this can bring up this theme of gender stigma, relationship to the father, people pleasing. Again, Venus and Leo, where we've had to mask. Mars in Libra even has this theme of it's said in traditional astrology to be in detriment, and Libra Mars is like, I don't know what to do. I have to listen to other people. Mars in Libra is all about exploring other people's desires, other people's values, other people's directions. And that's what's going to make this month tricky, is there's some rearrangement taking place. So that way we can have our needs for intimacy, emotional connection, a real heart inner circle that not every single human is going to be able to meet us on. So a large part of this month is actually going through this refining process inside and out. It'll be quite the full moon in Pisces, but I'll save that for a couple of weeks from now, right as Uranus stations. Folks, it is going to be a month that tests us. I encourage you all to join the community and use it for what it is meant for, which is to be a support system. Say we have this experience, which we can actually talk about. Mars forming opposition to Ceres. My goodness, in and of itself, isn't that interesting? So we got Ceres in Mars sign of Aries, right? And then Mars is in detriment in Libra, like where I'm used to doing things myself, and where do I go now? And Ceres in Aries is like, I'm encouraging people to be themselves and to be an individual, to stand up and protect themselves. So this can bring up this dichotomy between taking care of ourselves and others' needs. With Ceres, the needs of the family. Then the partner gets brought in and there can be discrepancy here. All of this stuff is Mars, Aries stuff. A lot of this can bring up, reactions, anger, frustration, and there very well may be something that we need to stand up and fight for. The call is there. Just make sure, while Mercury is square that Saturn Vesta I mentioned, the 28th to the 30th in general, Moon and Scorpio days honestly tend to be some of my most challenging of every month. I ascribe that to my Moon in Taurus. But yeah, this can get a little messy here. It's discerning our voice from others and understanding how deep we even can go. Do we share the same interests? Where do we merge? Where do we need to respect space? Because this can feel very, very claustrophobic. But what can come out of the creative tension between this need to kind of withdraw and honor our deeper soul's passions, despite how hard it is to communicate the deepest, darkest, most undefinable part of ourselves, that's also the source of our greatest genius. So there's a lot of creativity that can come out of the creative tension between self and other. I do encourage us to have those necessary conversations. This could very well be the beginning of Uranus in Gemini, which is going to be a decade of forming an entirely new way of networking together. So if you're finding a change of taste, a change of direction, new curiosities leading you in new directions, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the month where things suddenly flip and, what used to be really tasty is flavorless, and what used to be really interesting, we suddenly find boring. What's most important is that we don't get caught down and weighed down into any limiting role identifications like, I got to be the eternal grocer, the eternal sweeper, the eternal problem solver. I'm the garbage can for everybody else's problems because they're too narcissistic. They can't look at themselves. They got to shadow project onto the person who actually sees and understands their ulterior motivations, their deeper shadow, the deeper reality themselves. That's why what's going on these days, the moon just moved into Cancer as I am recording this now. Let us at the very least create for ourselves inwardly the warmest, the most loving, inviting home within our very own heart, and if we need to have a little bit of fun and games and play around, pretend we have multiple personalities, whatever, don't actually go crazy. It's just a suggestion that we can form an internal system of self-support. And if you're interested in that, this is the Cancer medicine I came to disseminate. My own Jupiter's at 16 Cancers. This is my Jupiter return. I'll make sure in the video description there's a link to the Inner Child workshop. That's some of the best, most useful way of creating this internal system of self-support. This is an emotional internal system of self-support. The process is called reparenting. And you know what? It's actually a considerably, easy and effortless process. We can just listen to the hypnotherapy and it takes us straight through to the other end. One of the only ways we can truly feel and allow those emotions to move through us is to actually do nothing at all. We have to actually not run off into the distraction or the workaholism. And that may be the challenging thing, to simply allow ourselves to feel, to simply allow ourselves to receive the information coming back from our inner child right now. My God, it's going to be really, really important that we do so, because on a planet where empathy is becoming increasingly rare, the supporters, the providers, the fillers, as opposed to the takers, need to get together to support one another, lest we be siphoned. And we can't be siphoned. We are the ones who have to guide the rest. So if we throw our pearls before swine, there's no way this world's going to turn around. We have to have the confidence to even go it alone sometimes. And the popularity contest is one of the surest ways to sell out, if not sell our soul. So this creating internal support is also so we don't have to grab onto or accidentally bring in what may be some very unwanted energy, dynamics, dramas, hellish decades of your life you need not waste, when it could be dedicated to your own life, your own love, your own worship of what you consider sacred. And that is where I'm going to conclude. Let's push the limits of how much we can take care of ourselves. So even in a time that doesn't feel comfortable, we are learning increasingly how to change our own inner emotional response by being our own mother and our own father, who's going to take us through that process inwardly like a boat. We know that we've got something to rest upon, even if it gets a little bumpy. Just speak to yourself, remind yourself. If you're having any emotions at all, you're probably already in a safe place, because if there's a tiger chasing you, you don't feel emotions, you go into fight or flight. So if you're having any emotional feedback at all, means you're already in a safe enough space to do that emotional digestion. This I very much recommend. It is the tether to our soul. That is why I conclude all of my videos with a please take care. It is an invitation to give to yourself the most missing and needed medicine in the world, the zodiac sign of Cancer.